Hi everyone, I'm Sarah from American Offshore Wind Academy. We are an academy that is dedicated to offshore wind and professional development for all the experts across the world. We teach our classes with our experts teaching expert model, where we pull in some of the top minds from across the globe in order to make sure that we're facilitating great networking and most up to date information for all of our attendees and experts themselves. And with this LinkedIn Live series, Ask the Expert, we grab one of those global experts for a quick 10-minute chat so you can broaden your offshore knowledge in the time it takes for you to enjoy your favorite coffee or tea. And today we're welcoming Sarah McElman from Metocean Expert America. Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
Hi, good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, Sarah, today we're going to talk a little bit about Metocean. We're going to talk about hurricanes.
My
Most
favorite
people,
topic.
yes, obviously. um, Most people like to think that the windier it is, the better it is, but this isn't actually the case. All of our wind turbines are built with a certain cutoff speed so that when we actually go over the speed, the wind turbine will shut off. Sometimes we have very extreme cases, such as hurricanes. So you mind telling us a little bit more about how our wind turbines are able to react to hurricanes and other extreme weather situations?
Yeah, so of course, the strong winds are good up to maybe the rated speed. So that's going to be the most typical speed you're going to find for power production. Then over that, you're going to actually kind of start balancing loads with speed. And then once we get to a high enough wind speed, maybe something like 30 meters per second, turbines tend to shut off. And what they do is they feather the blades into neutral position and weather the storm, as it were. Hurricanes, of course, are very intense events. They can be very intense events, and so there are some additional measures that we have to take to make sure that we have the right turbine and the right functioning for the site that we are characterizing and building our farm for.
And then in terms of how do we actually measure the hurricanes?
Yeah, so that's a great question. You know, we only have, say a couple, maybe between 10 to 15 hurricanes that might come onto the Atlantic coast in the Atlantic hurricane season a year. So it's kind of a really, you have to have your measurement systems out there that are just in the right place. You have to have a storm track. You know, these hurricanes are much smaller than our winter storms that we experience elsewhere in North America, but also in the North Sea. And so it's really a challenge to make sure that we have observations of these storm features. So how do we quantify this? Well, we look at historical risk. So the storms that have passed through in the past, do we have observations of those storms? And if we do, we try to start quantifying what was the speed then, what could the speed possibly have reached during this specific storm, and then how does that sit within our, all of the types of extreme winds and all the strong winds that we have at our site to determine what type of storm this is going to be for our project.
And how are we physically measuring these?
Yeah, so maybe we'll have buoys out in the ocean. They have to be exactly in the right spot to pick up. Maybe we have, very varying winds over the storm itself. And then we have, buoys that are going to be measuring waves that are generated by the storm, even if we don't have high winds. But it's tough. We don't have a ton of observations. And especially when we're talking about wind turbines, we want to know what the turbulence intensity is inside of a hurricane, which you need to pick the right wind turbine generator. There are a lot of questions we don't know. But there's one very cool activity that's been going on for the past couple of years. You might know so far. Ocean, they have these very low cost and durable buoys, and so they've been partnering with the U.S. government, and they use their hurricane plane to kind of throw these buoys during certain hurricanes over while they're flying over the hurricane, and these buoys are then measuring waves that are being generated in the storm. And they also have things called drop sondes, which we've been using for a much longer period of time that measure certain atmospheric characteristics as well. And so over the course of many different storms, we're able to build up this knowledge that we can use for offshore wind.
Okay, wow, that's quite impressive. I can't imagine throwing a buoy off a plane into
Sometimes.
All right, so then once we actually have the data, though, what are we doing with it? How are we actually taking that data and using it to be able to best design our offshore wind farms and turbines?
Yeah, so just one storm isn't enough. Maybe we have, the storm of the century. Some people might remember from, I guess, a couple decades ago, which was not a hurricane, by the way. But, we have these really big events, and then we're saying, okay, well, how does this compare to all the events that I might experience at this event? I guess I'll say in two phases. We can look at historical hurricane tracks for our region that we're looking at for building this wind project. And then we also have a Metocean model that is part of the typical design process for offshore wind. And this is normally done by a hindcast. And so we take these very high resolution for certain features, say a kilometer grid scale of winds. And we kind of start from the data available today and we model backwards maybe 30 to 40 years. And this is the traditional Metocean model. We model winds, waves, currents, water levels on an hourly basis for this hindcast period. And this works really well for the North Sea, which has extratropical cyclones, winter storms, and doesn't have hurricanes. And I find that 30 to 40 years, this is the data that is available for forcing these models. And when we take those methods and we look at the east coast of the United States, maybe 30 to 40 years isn't enough when we're talking about maybe you only get 10 to 15 hurricanes for a season in the Atlantic coast. And so there are other methods that we're starting to incorporate now into design. There's direct numerical modeling of 100 years, maybe of hurricane data that has been reanalyzed, essentially, that is offered, that's kind of started from a joint industry project in the Gulf of Mexico, and that has been kind of taken up and developed more by a company called Ocean Weather. We also have synthetic hurricane modeling, which people will take maybe 10,000 years of, based on the historical hurricane tracks and say, okay, well, with climate change or these other features, what happened if we just moved our storm a little bit this way? How would it be different? We can just do a Monte Carlo simulation of just generate all this data and use that as a basis for forcing our mid-ocean model as well to determine what the real extremes for the site might be.
Okay. But 30, 40, 50 plus years, offshore wind hasn't been running that long. So where are we pulling all of this data from exactly?
Yeah, right. So this is a big project that's coming. It's going to be from your oceanographic institutes. It's going to be from your national weather institutes. And oil and gas has done so much work, of course, for a much longer time scale as well. And so, especially in the mid-ocean domain, we're very lucky to have kind of the work that these global oil majors have been doing. In these different parts of the world, like the Gulf of Mexico, the different coastal regions that do definitely get hurricanes. And so it's really a privilege to collaborate with these mid-ocean teams across the world to kind of pool our knowledge to determine what the best practices are.
Yeah. It's very important right now with this industry being so new in offshore wind. It's really nice that people collaborate to inter-industry and across the world, et cetera. This is really nice to see.
It takes everyone. I think it's a really complex thing to get a handle on.
Absolutely. So then moving forward, what do you foresee is the next big steps for us to be able to really nail that hurricane analysis with Metocean?
Well, there are a couple things, right? So we have different turbines, the WTGs, that we select for different conditions, and normally this is based on your wind speed, so maybe your average 10-minute wind speed, and then your 3-second gust, and this is how you pick what the best turbine is going to be for your site. And we have something today called a T-class turbine, which can weather the storm of, say, up to a Category 2 hurricane. And so there is ongoing work in different parts of the world. There's Gulf wind technologies in the Gulf of Mexico that's looking at, we definitely get stronger than Cat 2 hurricanes around the world and in the Gulf of Mexico. And so they're looking at kind of what are the next design steps we can take to really build this turbine that can withstand these, up to Cat 5. So some neat new innovations coming out down there, and I'm sure around the world as well.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what those are coming up. All right, then I think that's mostly it for today. Do you have any last thoughts you want to share with us? Anything that makes you super excited to talk about?
I really want to just emphasize the collaboration part. There are bits of knowledge everywhere, our governmental organizations, like I said, oil and gas. And then, of course, one offshore wind platform is not the same as 60 or 100 flexible turbines that are 150 meters up in the air and all swaying around. And so there are shared and also new things to think about here, and this collaboration, there's definitely enough for everyone to think about. And so I've been so thankful and happy to work with academics, industry, government, security, and safety to really make sure we have resilient infrastructure that is going to serve us well into the future.
Yeah, thank you. Better together, always, for sure.
Definitely. Great.
Well, as you can see, Sarah's extremely passionate about Metocean. If you'd love to learn more, she can talk an entire day about it. In fact, we have a course with her coming up on May 12th, where she will walk you through everything, all with that huge 1,000-watt smile that she's got when she talks about
I love this stuff.
Well, thank you, thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank
Sarah.
you.